My life just went south, and it was hard to go north again. Went south for a long time. I became the black sheep of the family. So much so that I still call myself the black sheep. Even though God has done so many great things for me, I say that to help so many other men and women to know that God can fix anything and anybody.
After our second child, my wife said no more shirt off stuff. And so I'm really growing in that category. But who knows? This Sunday's coming.
You got good stuff, but the organization is terrible. This should be here, this should be here, and this should be here.
It's a genius.
And I said, okay. He said, listen to me. So he takes my sermon, throws my phone down. He preaches to me for 45 minutes. My message, and it's like platinum,
And the fact that you've buried your father and buried your firstborn son, I think there's either you react and you go the wrong way, or you react and become more of who God called you to be.
You're going to learn how to rest in who you are, and going to find out who you are. Then you're going to rest in that. You're going to plow through it and do the work of healing, because healing hurts.
Hey, it's Rich, and you're listening to the Mature Me podcast, weekly content devoted to all things life, leadership, culture, and faith. Thank you for taking some time to tune in. Make sure you subscribe and follow us on all our social channels so you don't miss a thing. Let's listen to today's episode. Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the Mature Me podcast. My name is Rich Wilkerson, Jr. This is the podcast that we talk about growing and becoming. The only thing more important with who you are today is who you're becoming tomorrow. And so I don't really care about your current situation. I'm really excited about your future destination. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching by way of YouTube, go ahead and like, subscribe, share this. It really helps us. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Music, leave us a review, rate it, tell some people about it. It always helps. Every Tuesday morning, I release a free leadership email. It's called Leadership with Rich. You can go to richwilkersonjr.com right now. Over 10,000 people now have subscribed to that. Why don't you join them? It's just a free resource to help you get better in your leadership. As you get better, I'm telling you what, everyone around you is going to get better. They're going to grow. Today, I'm excited because I've got a wonderful guest. Finally just meeting him for the first time in person like 5 minutes ago. But somebody who I have watched in the distance, listened to him preach, and just watch his leadership continue to grow. He is an inspiration to me personally. I know he's going to be helpful for you, but maybe you've never heard of him before. Today you're going to get to know him. He is a pastor. He is a husband. He is a father. He is an author. He is an actor. He is an artist. He is a prophet. He is an apostle. Just keep going through all this stuff. I've got brand new to South Florida, ladies and gentlemen. Finally in my neck of the woods, we've got Pastor Joel Tudman in the house. How are you, sir?
Good, brother.
I'm so happy you're here.
First of all, he gives this amazing introduction.
Yeah, right.
I've been wanting to meet him for like 20 years.
Whatever.
Let me tell you why. He's the only pastor that I've ever seen get up with no shirt on, run down the street with the video showing his body in the pool, on a skateboard, on a surfboard. And I'm like, why can't I do that? I still can't do it.
You can only do that when your body is uninspiring. Then it's totally not vanity. As soon as you actually have a good body, keep your shirt on.
Oh, my goodness. I'm going to try it. I told my wife, I said, listen, after I do this podcast with him,
love you.
I'm taking my shirt off. And I'm going to do my first social media video 20 years later. I'm going to do it.
I think after our second child, my wife said no more shirt off stuff. And so I'm really growing in that category. But who knows? This Sunday's coming. Whatever it takes, my friend.
I know that's right, brother.
I'm so glad that you're here, man.
Man, thank you for having me. Again, this is serious. I've watched you from a distance for a long time. I've always thought that you've done church different. For our age bracket, you've been a trendsetter. You've been the Kirk Franklin of the gospel, now the Chandler Moore of the gospel. You've been that across all cultures. And to sit here on your podcast today, thank you. Number two, thank you for what you've done.
You're very
you've
kind.
laid tracks for us, man, and you're incredible.
You're very kind. It's crazy. One of my dearest friends in the ministry, but just friend, is Robert Madu. That's your first biological cousin.
First cousin. It's crazy.
It all makes sense.
You see how short his dad is? I used to swing from his dad's biceps. It's crazy. That's
hard to believe.
It's the truth.
So let's go back a little bit because you recently moved to South Florida. We'll get there. You are transitioning into leadership of the Faith Center. Those that don't know about this church, we'll talk a whole lot about it today. But take me back to where you grew up, how you grew up, a little bit of your story getting into the ministry.
Well, it goes all the way back to a little crazy town in East Texas, Mount Pleasant, Texas. We lived there. Church boy, played every music instrument that you can imagine, but strictly the drums most of the time. My mom and dad divorced, so they both were Kojic. She started playing for a Baptist church. He was still preaching at a Kojic church. So first and third at the Baptist, second and fourth at the Church of God in Christ.
Jeez.
Split family. It was hard for us. We left East Texas, went to Amarillo, Texas. Once we moved to Amarillo, Texas, we were kind of distant from everybody. Now, my mom had lots of family in Amarillo, but Amarillo at that time was really drug infested. Lots of gangsters that were down there doing a lot of stuff. My life took a turn there. Our family is very athletic. Everybody can play. Everybody's got scholarships. And I took a turn for the worst, started hanging with drug dealers and gangsters. Now, I wasn't a gangster, but I hung with them. And my life just went south, and it was hard to go north again. Went south for a long time. I became the black sheep of the family. So much so that I still call myself the black sheep. Even though God has done so many great things for me, I say that to help so many other men and women to know that God can fix anything and anybody, because he did it for me. But I went south, lost my scholarship to the Razorbacks, went to jail for beating up my teacher, and he called me a vulgar term, and I just lost it, got expelled. Was out of school for like 4 years, went to a Division II school, played ball, thought I was going to make it to the NFL. That didn't happen. Went into depression, had kids like crazy at an early age, irresponsible, and then spent a lifetime trying to rebuild those relationships with baby mothers, okay? It wasn't good. It's nothing to be proud of, but what I am proud of is that we've been able to mend those relationships.
Wow.
And from there, ministry's always been in the blood, but wasn't answering it, wasn't trying to. I was too busy trying to be me, you know. Football was number one, track and field, women, all of that other stuff in the world. But the call kept coming, And then when the call actually came, I still was halfway in and halfway out. But then it got serious for me. And once it got serious for me, we had moved to Oklahoma. I moved to Oklahoma to coach. And during the process of me coaching there,
how old were you roughly around this time?
I was 24, okay? 21, 22, 23, I was playing still for a church, and I was still in college because I went back to college after getting dropped off. I went to Texas A&M University of Commerce, and I was playing for a church, and I took over that church. And when I took over that church, the church grew. It was a small church. It went from like maybe 20 people to 300 people.
And they just said, hey, we'd love for you to...
Well, I was already playing there, and the pastor had gotten cancer.
Okay.
And he said, hey, take the church. And it wasn't much of anything, but, you know.
Had you ever preached before that moment?
I had preached before, but
okay.
Again, that was that halfway in, halfway out. So I had preached, but I got serious then. And once I got to Oklahoma and started coaching for Oklahoma State University, life changed for me drastically. I started making great money, and I would get off the bus Saturday night. We'd fly in from somewhere, get off the bus once we drove back to the school. I'd get in my car and drive 3.5 hours to Mount Pleasant to preach that Sunday morning. Then turn around and drive right back to make sure I was at work at 5 a.m. Monday morning. And the AD comes to me and he says, hey, you know, you're in your department, Coach Glass says that, you know, you're a really good young man, that you can coach very well. And he says, we got to get you off that road. And I said, well, I mean, it's a church. You can't just take me away from the church. He goes, yeah, but if you die on the way back home, that's going to be bad. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to die. God's not going to kill me. You know, we're laughing and talking. But then it made sense. Why am I doing this? It wasn't my call. I was filling in for somebody, and somebody's trying to bless me. So we set that up so another guy, older guy, could take that church. They gave me like a $35,000 raise. I'm working. Then I got a $20,000 raise. I'm working. Another $40,000 raise. I'm working. So my money's going up. I'm doing well. I'm buying homes. And I started teaching a Bible study for some football players. They said, hey, coach, man, can we have Bible study one night? I said, sure. So we have Bible study. It's 50 players. Then it's 50 players and their girlfriends. And then it's 50 players and their girlfriends and friends. So I talked to the coach and said, hey, can we get the chapel on campus? He's like, sure. So we get the chapel on campus. It's packed. So we moved from the chapel on campus to the theater. Theater's holding like 300 or 400 people. And it's packed. And all we're doing is going in and saying, hey, what do you guys want to learn tonight? And they're like, man, we want to learn about fornication, you know? So I'm like,
okay.
I'm like, okay. So you guys go Google fornication in the Bible and bring back your scriptures and let's talk about it. It was that simple. And the thing took off, all right? Takes off. It's amazing. And maybe 2 years later, I feel the call to plant a church, but not in that city. So Oklahoma City was maybe 48 minutes from Stillwater. And so I go to Oklahoma City with 9 graduate students from all those that were coming to service. And we planted a church that eventually got up to about 1,000 people. It was an amazing church. And in the process of pastoring that church, I got married. We had a blended family, crazy gifted, crazy witty family. All the kids have my name. Her kids have my last name. I adopted them. And so we went through the woes of, trying to figure out how to blend. But now we're all crazy and have a great time.
Who helped you plant this church? Did you do this through a movement, a denomination? This is just an independent church, and you just dug it out.
Dug it out with my hands, man. You know what I'm saying? On my knees, praying to God. And I had some football players that donated serious money to the ministry to help me get off the ground. You know, that coached a lot of guys that went to the league, and they were like, "Hey, we want to help you," and they did. And it was, I'll never forget them. I thank God for them. And we did some great things. But in the process of that, COVID-19 hits. COVID-19 hits, and
how many years were you into it at that point?
We started it in 2009.
Okay, so
we've been
10 years.
Yeah.
So you gave 10 years.
10 years strong, you know.
Oklahoma City.
You know what? I said 08. So 08. So we're strong. We're going well. Church is doing good. COVID affects everybody.
Yep.
Well, while it is affecting 2018, I preached for Pastor Cheryl Brady in Dallas, Texas on Watch Night, 2 services. God moves. It's incredible.
How did that opportunity even come about?
Her husband reaches out to me. He DMs me on Instagram.
Because he sees a clip of you?
He sees you
preaching.
Okay. And he says, man, you're anointed. God's going to do something crazy. Yeah, and I'm like, wow, Bishop Brady's inboxing me? He's like, yeah, this is me. So we talked for maybe 2 months. And he says, I'm going to talk to my wife and see if, we can invite you for Watch Night. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. So I'm like, okay. So it actually happens. I go preach. God moves. It's incredible. I'm meeting who I believe is one of the greatest women preachers. And, and of course.
Were you nervous?
Oh, God. Yeah, I was so nervous, And both of them, because they're both powerful in their own right. I get there, and the first service, I didn't actually preach. I start praying for people, and it's like pandemonium. So I'm nervous because I'm trying to make this call, like, you still want me to preach? And we just prayed for people for like 45 minutes. So I don't. I just raised the offering. And so when I get to the back, Pastor Cheryl Brady says, are you going to preach? With a serious face. And I was like, yes, ma'am. I said, I didn't know what to do because
we have another service.
I got another service.
There's a clock? What do you want me to do?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
You're trying to honor it? You're like,
I'm trying to figure out how
kind of got away from me there in the ministry time.
And so
didn't know God was really going to show up today like that. Yeah.
So she's like, she starts laughing. So I was like, okay, because I thought it was like she talked real serious and stern at first.
Yeah.
And I was like,
she got that voice.
Yes.
Yeah.
It sounded just like that.
Yeah.
So I was like,
She's
okay,
been preaching.
cool. I said, I'm going to preach the second service no matter what.
Okay.
I promise you. And raised a great offering. So she goes, hey, raise the offering. It was a great job. I said, okay, cool. So I preach, God moves, blast the place.
Did you show up to because she's in Dallas, right?
She's in Frisco, Texas.
Did you have a crew of people come with you?
Mm-hmm.
Did you bring a bunch of your
I had about 100 people with me.
Yes.
Yeah, I had about 100.
I'm not going to that thing alone, bro.
No.
We coming in strong.
Coming in strong. We go in, we do our thing, it's over, God blesses. After the service, Bishop Brady comes up and says, hey, Bishop was watching you tonight. I said, Bishop who? Bishop Jakes. Come back next week. He's going to be preaching, so you can meet him. He and John Hannah are going to be preaching. They're doing a New Year's revival. I said, okay, fantastic. I come back. I hear John one night. Bishop gets up to do his deal. He goes, first of all, I want to thank God for Pastor Tudman. This is me. Like, who's Pastor Tudman? Like, this is Bishop Jake said, Pastor Tudman. So the camera's on me and everybody's laughing. And he goes, I'm talking to you. And I said, wow. He said, I watch you. I'm like, you watch me? I watch you. I want to meet you after church. I go in there after church. He kills the place like he always does. I go in after church, and I walk through the door. He goes, God's going to bless you. Like, everybody's in the room. And as soon as I walk through the door, God's going to bless you. And I turn around. I'm like, oh, my God, quit turning around. Come here. So he lays hands on me, right? I fall out. 3 other guys, younger guys that are in there, fall out. He walks off. Didn't even say anything to me. That's all he said. 3 months later, I get a call from Miss Beverly. My wife and I are headed to the Frankie Beverly Mays concert. It's her saying, hey, Bishop Jakes wants you to preach Good Friday. And I'm like, what? Bishop Jakes wants me to preach at his church. He's like, yeah. She said, I know it's late, so are you available? I'm not, but I said I am. Yeah. Yes, I'm available.
Yeah, I'm doing nothing on Good Friday.
Yeah, I'm available. No. So I had to call the guy that I was going to preach for. Hey, man, I can't preach for you. I got this amazing opportunity that I cannot tell you about yet because I think it's a joke. And he's like, what? I said, I think it's a joke. I don't think it's real, but we boys, so just let me out of it, and I'll tell you if it's real. He goes, all right. Flyer comes out. He calls me, hey, I'm going with you, So we were laughing about it. So I get opportunity to preach for him.
You.
Dude, I walk in that room, and I had been going to Project Gideon forever, and this story is long. I'm sorry, guys.
No, this is amazing. Are you kidding me? This is what I live for. Are you kidding me? I went to Project Gideon one time.
I went like 4 or 5 times, right?
That's where Robert Madu and I met.
Really?
Project Gideon back in in person, maybe many, many years ago.
Project Gideon, I'm sitting on the back row. I never meet him. I'm just on the back row, And so they come pick me up. Boom, I stay. I preached for this guy in Connecticut the night before. So I'm sitting in the green room, and the guy comes get me and say, hey, Bishop wants to talk with you. I said, okay. Go up to his room, and Bishop's putting his they're putting his cufflinks on him, and he's getting his robe, and he's standing there, and they're getting him right. This is Bishop Jakes, man. This is big. He says, he goes, I almost canceled you.
Oh, man.
Like, this is his first.
Yeah.
I almost canceled you.
Maybe you should have. I don't know if I belong here. Yeah.
I'm like, what did I do? He goes, you went to preach last night in Connecticut. I said, yes, sir. It was on my calendar. He said, never go preach somewhere that you can preach anytime when you're going to preach for someone that's going to change your life.
Wow.
He said, this is a destiny call. So now you're going to come at a moment where your life can change and give us your leftovers. And I was like,
sorry?
Yeah, because if I say anything, it's going to be wrong. If I say, no, I don't, this is not leftovers, it's still going to be wrong. Yeah. And if I say, no, it's the date is on my calendar, now you sound stupid. So I just took the whipping.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll never do it again, sir. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for not canceling me. And then he goes, now, I'm sure you want to do good tonight. I said, yes, sir. He said, you didn't come to the city and soak up Dallas and soak up this church, so you have no idea what we're going through. God hasn't had time to talk to you. This is how he's talking to me. And I'm like, in my core, I'm like, I'm ready. You know what I'm saying? But now I'm like, not ready. I'm shaking in my shoes. I'm like, man, I've blown it. And he says, if you just do a good job, we will have all come together and had a good time. He's not even looking at me. He's getting the cufflinks. But he said, then he turns and says, but if you're ready and God has truly spoken to you, this will be a shift for your destiny.
Oh.
And then he takes his hand and says, bless him! Boom! I fall out on the floor. All right.
Before church has even
This is
begun.
Before church starts.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm down there crying.
Oh my goodness.
They let me cry. They pick me up. He gets on his robe. He's done, fully clothed. He said, let's go. So we started walking, and he walks fast. We walk. He's fully clothed. As soon as we walk out, it's time for him to get up. And
Are you so nervous?
I'm shaking. Haven't met him one-on-one, and I'm about to preach for him, okay? And I'm preaching for him on Good Friday.
And like this message you're about to bring, like you believe in it. You're like, this is it. I got the right word. Like, or now you're like,
I don't doubt the word,
Okay.
but I'm doubting me, brother.
Okay,
oh,
okay.
my God. I'm
Okay.
man, I don't know if I don't know.
this is
Yeah,
a thing.
this is intense.
What are you wearing?
I got
Suit?
I got a black suit on, white
Okay.
shirt, and a black tie. I look like a mortician ready to bury somebody.
Let's go. It's Good Friday, bro.
It's Good
It's
Friday.
A funeral.
So, dude, I walk
It's
out
Friday,
there.
but Sunday's
he
coming.
goes out there and he electrifies
No.
the place. You know what I'm talking about. Give God glory. I mean, it's like they're going, and I give to you, Bishop Joel Tudman. They don't know me. It's like cricket, 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 cricket. Now, those same 100 people that went with me, they're out there in the audience, but now they look like one person, you know, because it's 10,000 seat auditorium. And but at the end of the day, God came and electrified the place. We had an amazing time. It was one of the biggest altar calls that I ever called in my life, and I learned a lesson that, you know, once you start pastoring a mega church, you cannot go down there and lay hands on all these people. So I'm laying hands in a sea. Like, they can't find me. I'm all over the place. There's people everywhere, and it changed my life. From that moment,
He was right.
from that moment, everything changed for me.
Jeez.
And ministry shifted. My trajectory in ministry shifted. My family shifted. My leadership skills shifted. My business skills shifted. Everything. I submitted to him, and I made the decision. He actually called me back to preach on a Sunday morning, maybe 3 weeks later. He went to Africa, and he didn't even ask me. He had her call me and was like, hey, he wants you to preach in his stead. I said, I just got off the phone with him. So I called him. I said, why didn't you ask me? Let the business be the business. I'm talking to you. I said, okay.
It's insightful.
Yeah. So
The night you got done preaching, what was it like afterwards?
Celebratory
or I don't.
I was frozen, and he talks about it to this day. He had invited younger preachers in the room to come eat, and
Yeah.
it was decked out, very, very nice, great food. I never touched my food. I never touched my phone. I sat next to him the whole night like a little boy, and our relationship has been that way ever since. So much honor. I honor him. I cherish him. He's a father to me.
Did you feel consciously aware afterwards that something just shifted in my life?
No,
No. You were kind of
frozen.
frozen.
I was frozen. He even looked at me and said, are you not going to eat? I said, no, sir. He said, you haven't called anybody. You haven't texted anybody. You just preached on the biggest platform of your life, and you've not taken a picture, nothing. You haven't even asked me for a picture. I said, I just want to sit next to you, sir. And I stayed there. And that has been my posture with him.
Wow.
And any man of God that comes in my life, you know. So he changed me when I went to work for him in COVID.
Wow.
So
So share that. So, and real quick, just back on the very beginning, has there ever been like any kind of recapping of that? Like, is some of that stuff, and I mean, he's not here to, but like, is that a test to some degree? Like, is it like, hey, I'm going to tell you what this is, and this is the opportunity, and either you'll rise to the occasion or you won't? Or
it wasn't a test. It was a moment that I had to discern and seize, and I did. It was not a test. He's who he is, and he gives that opportunity to people that he pulls in. You either take it or you don't. And I did. And when I did, things started changing for me. I was pastoring in Oklahoma. We had a great church, and of course, COVID affected it, like anybody. But during that time, he and I had been talking prior to COVID about my leadership skills and pastoring, coaching, traveling, preaching, being a husband, being a father. He's like, you're doing too much. And I said, what do you mean I'm doing too much? He's like, you should have a bigger church. He said, but you're never going to have a bigger church because you're not walking by faith with the ministry. I said, no, sir, I'm walking by faith with the ministry. That was the only time I disagreed with him. He says, how are you walking by faith with the ministry? I said, because everything we have is because of faith, you know? He says, you got an amazing job making mid six figures, you don't have to trust God for anything. If something doesn't work, you can do it. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's true. Walk away from that job. I said, oh, no, I love my job. I love it. I love coaching. He said, you're going to have to learn how to trust God. It's a whole nother thing. So I walked away from the job.
Wow.
And
that was like a safety blanket for you.
Oh, God, yes. And then to work for him wasn't making near what I was making. And I was ready to go. I didn't have anything to do at my church anymore. I had reached a pinnacle. And, of course, again, it wasn't a 10,000-member church.
Yeah.
But I had reached a place
ran
where
its course.
I could do it.
Were people disappointed with you there?
Oh, yeah, big time.
That was people were sad.
Yes, and it was hard.
How did you manage through that? I got a word from God. I need to obey. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yeah. And then the succession process didn't work very, very well. We tried 2 different things that didn't work well, and so that set in my spirit for a long time. I grieved really, really, really bad, and at some point later in Dallas, I didn't realize that I hadn't grieved until I had lost my oldest son and lost my dad. Once I lost them, then I started realizing all the other losses, and I didn't realize that they were losses. You know?
Can you give us some insight on some of that in terms of what happened there? When did all that take place? That was when you were in Dallas?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
So you leave and you go work for Bishop Jakes.
I'm working for Bishop.
You're preaching, teaching for him.
I'm preaching and teaching for him, and that within itself is
a lot.
Because he took my style and crushed it and threw it in the trash and told me, what got you here is not going to keep you here. This is not that. He says, now you're good, but this is a different place. So I want you to tie that big right hand behind your back, and I want you to box with your left hand till you get strong enough. I don't want you to ever use your voice again. I want people to know you for your brains. You're way more intelligent than what you show. He goes, everything that's posted about you is a sizzle. It's a sizzle reel. I don't want any more sizzle reels. I want people to hear you think. I said, yes, sir. And I'm like, well, I thought I was a thinker, you know. And he's like, no, you only show sizzle. So we go in, we wipe off my social media. There's no hooping and hollering. My Pentecostal background, it's all gone. And so now he's like, if you want to teach for white churches, black churches, and I know it's not white and black, but white pastors, black pastors, if you want to come out of this circle of just Pentecostal flavor and you want to go around the world, which is what you told me, then I need you to tie that behind your back, and I want you to learn how to teach. And I want you to teach until it turns into your right hand. He said, now don't stop using this. We're going to pull it out from time to time.
But know when to use it and how to use it.
That's right. And that's what happened to me for 4 years with him.
That was humbling?
I went, oh, my God, it was humbling because this was the one thing that I had confidence in. I could grab this and do it. So I had to do this for 4 years. And here's the thing. I did it with 75,000 people watching. So it was very irritating, and sometimes I felt like it was dehumanizing because the 1 or 2 things that I can do great, he's telling me I can't do it. And so now it's not that I'm ignorant, but I had confidence in my style.
Sure, yeah.
I wasn't walking by faith in my style. So he crushed my style and helped me morph into something new that has taken me around the world. But at first, oh my God, I hated it.
You're vulnerable. You feel naked.
And that's one of the things he told me. He says, you're a big man. He says, but your identity has been wrapped in your version of masculinity. And he says, and it's kind of toxic. He says, so soon as you release that and show the people Joel and not Superman, then your preaching is going to affect people a different way.
Jeez.
He says, because right now you're this tough dude that's like nothing touches you. He said, that preaching doesn't change anybody. He says, you got to open yourself up. He says, and when you do that, you're going to open yourself up for attack because people are going to look at your life and want to gut you and want to cut you into pieces. You're going to feel like you're standing naked in front of the crowd. He said, but that's the only way people got to the cross because Jesus was up there naked. He's bleeding. He said, you got to bleed in front of these people. Let your message hit the pew. And it took 1.5 years for me to actually understand what he was saying. And then after that, it started getting better. When my son passed, we had spent the last 5 years of his life getting closer. And so the way he passed was just shaky, and when I got the call, it ripped us to pieces. And his mother wanted me to do the eulogy.
How old was your boy?
27. Wow. And
so sorry.
Oh man, pray for us, brother. And in those moments,
this is your oldest?
This is my oldest son,
firstborn.
So, yes, and he, when that happens, you got every feeling in the world. Stuff that you didn't do right, things that you did do right, things you wish you could do over again. It's just so much, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that I've wrestled with through that process. Still wrestling with. Well, then my dad dies.
Jeez.
My dad and I, of course, I thought he was the greatest preacher when I was a kid. But then when we got older, we kind of just separated.
Yeah.
And it took a while for our relationship to get where it needed to be. And if I hadn't had Bishop Jakes, it would have never gotten there. And when Dad started dying his last year, we started talking. Well, his last 30 days on the earth, I took off work, and Bishop would let me go, 3 or 4 days during the week. I'd go back to Dallas. Then his last 2 weeks, I stayed in Texarkana, Texas with him, and I watched him die. I watched him take his last breath. But those last 2 weeks, man, were probably the best 2 weeks of being a son I've ever experienced in my life. I was like 5 all over again. We held hands, I scratched his back. He had dialysis, so there were times when he didn't want to take it anymore. The poison would get to his brain, and he'd start talking about stuff that was crazy. But he loved church so much. Church was his number one thing. All the relationships have been terrible sometimes, but church, oh my God, his members, he loved them, So he's over there, head spinning sometime, and he's like, hey. And I'm listening. I said, yeah. He goes, do you see a black Cadillac out there? It's pitch black. I said, yeah. Boy, look in the closet and get that blue suit out of there. They waiting on us, And I'm like, where we going? To church, boy. I said, okay, let me get the suit. And then I put it on him, but in his mind, I'm putting it on him. I said, hey, you got it on. What? I said, you got it on. What I look like? I said, you look good. Shoot. Well, let's go, boy. We got to preach, And so we were having conversations like that. And the doctor was telling us, hey, when he goes that way, just go with him, Don't say, hey, what are you talking about? Just go with him. So we had many conversations like that. One night, Rich, he says to me, he says, move on. And I'm like, move on. Daddy, what are you talking about? Move on. Well, he's in a business meeting in his mind. Move on. Next thing. I said, Dad, the business meeting is over. What? I said, it's over. Well, what are we talking about? I said, well, it's over, Dad. I said, I've already gone down to, his church had gotten demolished in a storm. I said, I've already gone down to look at a new property. He said, look, I'm going to need somebody to take care of this church, boy. I said, Daddy, you already made me the assistant pastor. He said, well, you're the worst assistant pastor I've ever seen. So that stuff's about to make me cry because we were having conversations like that, bro. And we would do that, go back to sleep. And then one night he wakes up and he just goes, and I knew it. And I stood up and I watched him sit straight up and look up as if like he's being called. And I was watching him and I just patted him on his shoulder. I told him, I said, go on. I said, go on, Dad. I said, we good, And he took his last breath. He laid there and I cut his hair, shaved him. And he's been gone, man, for a year now. And when he left, I had all of these emotions that I had walled up for years since I was a teenager. And they just exploded, you know. And I asked God, why would you allow me to get to know him like this at the end of his life? And now I got to deal with all of this stuff. I had to get on the phone and call all my kids and apologize to them because I couldn't give them what I'd never had. But it wasn't until that happened that I understood what they needed. And it changed the trajectory of our relationships to learn how to actually be vulnerable and to show my wounds. So I know we didn't get on here for that, but that just hit me real quick. I'm sorry.
That's exactly what we're on here for. That this whole podcast is called Mature Me.
Whew.
And the fact that you've buried your father and buried your firstborn son, I think there's either you react and you go the wrong way, or you react and become more of who God called you to be.
Right.
Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt. I know we're having a great conversation, but I want to talk to you about something really important to me, especially if you're a pastor listening right now to the Mature Me podcast. Listen, after almost 20 years in ministry, I know what it means to be in the trenches day in and day out of building the church. And what I have learned is that lasting alone, well, it's impossible. The only way you're going to sustain and the only way you're going to grow is you've got to get around like-minded leaders. That's why we're hosting our VU Friends and Family Pastors Assembly. January 2025 in Miami. It's a 2-day gathering of training and impartation designed for you, the leader, the pastor, to lead with practical and spiritual handles. Last year, we had close to 500 pastors and leaders in the room alone, and I just know that this year is going to be even better. I want you to get registered right now. If you're a pastor, bring your team, bring your spouse, be with us in Miami, VU Church. Go to pastorsassembly.com. Let's get back to the convo. How do you think death has changed you in terms of?
It's helped me to really deal with sticky issues that they need to be solved. Because so many people, when they're difficult conversations to have and you just kind of turn the corner and keep going, you don't know if that person's going to be here tomorrow. And so solving issues are so serious, you know, and not only solving issues, but appreciating every little bitty moment, every little second of the day, where sometimes we let the small foxes destroy the vines. I have learned now how to just say, you know what, take a deep breath. I love you. Let's fix this. Let's work this. Let's appreciate this, because you're here 1 second and you're gone in the same second, not the next second, the same second. So it's changed me drastically, and it's made my emotive language, it's gotten so much higher. I could only get mad. I could get mad or be super excited. So I was two extremes. So my emotive language, it was either anger or joy, you know, happy. I didn't learn how to deal with life. How do I handle things when things are not going my way? I was extreme, polar opposite. So this experience has taught me really how to learn my own love language, my emotive language. All of those IQs have gone up. I've researched how to handle grief. I started going to counseling, listening to, what's going on with Joel and why Joel is the way he is. At my age now, at the age of, I didn't really know who I was till about 42. Okay. Wow. I'm still in my 40s. I just ain't gonna tell how old I am. I'm still in my 40s. I'm not 49, so I'm still in my 40s. And but just a few years ago, maybe 4 years ago, is when I finally understood who I was. And then when my dad died, then I stepped into the fullness. Okay, this is who I am. And I've lived all these years, talented, gifted, but unaware of my own identity. You know,
You're speaking to me right now because it's interesting listening to the time that you spent at the Potter's house and Bishop Jake saying, hey, we're going to tie that right arm behind your back, metaphorically, but quite literally in the sense of that you're saying, I've got two things here. I know anger and then I know extreme joy. What's difficult, I think, as people are listening to this right now, is that both of those things is how you've won.
Yes.
Both of those things is what attracted people to you. I've been doing a collection on Samson. And I think when you read Samson, it's so easy to create a case study of like good, bad, and evil, but there's something deeper going on here. Here's a guy who's burning with anger time and time again, but like he only knows how to operate in his gift.
Correct.
He only knows how to operate like in these two extremes. And I was preaching the other day, and I preached a message called "When Deliverance Isn't Enough."
Wow.
Because Samson didn't have a deliverance problem.
Correct.
God always delivered
He
him.
always did.
I think he had a healing problem. Wow. There's some hurts and injuries that we don't know how to heal and deal with. And for you, it's like you've got this great strength and you've got this ability, but just because you've got the ability doesn't always mean I've got the right authority. Correct. And how do I use these things? And so it's really powerful, I think, for someone who's listening right now, who sees you in the distance or watches your clips or hears your messages, for you to say, it wasn't until I was 42 that I was really actually getting in touch with who I am. I don't think his enemy is the Philistines. I think his enemy is himself. He won't deal with him.
Yeah, because
he accomplishes something, he's still empty.
The anointing would always come upon Samson to do a task, and he did the task successfully, and then he'd have to come back and deal with himself, and it was always difficult. So he was always doing tasks, and that's kind of the way I've lived my life. The pursuit of another task made me victorious and made me feel good about me. All right, and so it's also called avoidance, but at the same time, you're winning and losing at the same time. So you're winning externally. People are watching you. They're celebrating you. But on the inside, you still don't know how to deal with you. You don't even really know what the issue is. So you have to stay task-driven to stay happy. You know what I mean? And I've been there all these years. And so now I've tried to learn, okay, we're not doing any task right now. You're going to learn how to rest in who you are, and going to find out who you are. Then you're going to rest in that. You're going to plow through it and do the work of healing, because healing hurts. Ooh. Everything is not going to always be divine where you get touched and boom, it's gone. There's going to be work that comes with healing. You got to dig through and discover all of those buried pieces of trauma that you've just allowed life. As you've won, you've been packing dirt on all of this stuff that you've never allowed to get better. And that's what I did during those years. Just start digging, start pulling out all of this stuff, and it hurt. And I felt vulnerable in therapy. I felt, this is not a good term, but I felt raped. Like I would be in the session and I just get up and I told her, I said, look, I don't like that. I don't like how I feel. And I said, I got to go. She was like, don't go. I said, I'm leaving. And I would drive home, a 45-minute drive, and I would just feel naked, shame. I just shared something that I didn't even remember. There was stuff that I didn't even remember. She told me in counseling, she says, I want you to go find Joel. I said, what do you mean go find him? She said, go find Joel. I said, what Joel? She said, what's the first Joel that appears when I make that statement? Go find him. And I paused. I said, he's in a tree. No, I said, he's in a hole. She says, what hole? I said, he's in a hole down the street. And I told her about it. And I had forgot about it, what had happened in that hole. It was some bad stuff that happened in that hole. And I never even told my mom what happened to me. And when I told her, it made me feel it again. And I got up and I walked out, and I just took off. Because that was some pain that it was embarrassing. It was shameful. I felt like, it took advantage of me, and, but it also answered the questions of why Joel's masculinity is the way it is. Why is he like this? So if I hadn't started that healing process, I wouldn't have the answers.
Anger is a really interesting emotion that doesn't get, I think, talked about nearly enough. It's a key ingredient in anxiety, in depression, in addiction. When it comes to anxiety, it's I can't control the future and I'm, pissed about it. Depression is when I don't have an outlet. I just have outbursts.
Yeah.
And so it becomes an inward anger, which leaves me what psychologists would call that depression. And then I think many times addiction is a coping mechanism, whether that's sex, drugs, alcohol, gambling, power, tasks, whatever these things. We can be addicted to our work. I would fall into that category. It's a version of control because there's something inside of me that's angry because I feel a lack of justice, or I feel disappointed, or I feel like there's some sort of existential threat headed my way. It's amazing too, because I think in so many men, it is a key ingredient to a lot of things that they're going through, but they don't know how to even identify that or face that. And so when you're able to go back and do work like that of confronting what took place in my childhood, yeah, I think our mind covers these things up, and we have these things like repressed memories where we just try to forget about it, but we don't find the healing until it's coming into the light.
Yeah.
And I think you just said something that, like, healing hurts.
It hurts. You got to admit that you need it. You have to invite other people into the healing journey. And it is a journey, because even after the wound is healed, there are so many other people that you've wounded along the way that you didn't realize, that you've got to start a healing process of taking them along the journey for the stuff that you caused. And then things that you have allowed to slip past you because you were so focused on the anger. There are opportunities that you missed. There are people that wanted to do business with you, wanted to partner with you, but they could see the anger, even though you felt like you were doing a good job covering it up. Healed people can see hurt people, you know? And so a lot of times I realized that there were healed people that wanted to partner with me, but I was too hurt to be a part of their lives. So it takes a special person that's already healed that wants to come into your life and help you heal. They have to be called to you. And so you can't get upset when a healed person really doesn't want to just come in and help you, because, you know, you're a special client. You know, they're coming into your life and you could relapse and hurt them, hurt their family, hurt their reputation, hurt their pocketbook. So when you're broken and you're refusing to be healed, you can't get mad if someone's like, well, they don't see me. They see you. That is the issue. They do see you, and you have to be worth the risk. Now, that doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound churchy. But at the end of the day, when we're talking about, I'm not talking about institutional help. I'm talking about personal help.
Yeah.
The church is an institution. Yeah, we've got programs. But a person, when they attach themselves to you, they're attaching themselves to the worst of you. So they have to make sure that, hey, this is worth the risk. Because when he hurts, it's going to hurt me.
Jeez.
It's going to hurt what I'm connected to.
So in 2019, or I guess 2020 after COVID, you end up sometime after preaching that Good Friday, that Sunday, you get the call you're moving to Dallas.
Moving to Dallas.
Do you think you're moving to Dallas forever? Or
No, I knew it was going to be 3 to 5 years.
Okay.
That's what he and I talked about.
And he's going, this is going to be a win-win. I'm going to develop you. You've already talked about some of these things in terms of him pointing things out. What was he hoping to get out of you, that you would help teach?
Yes, he needed some help. He
Yeah.
said, I need some help. I'm getting older, and I won't have to bring in a lot of people.
Yeah.
I can have inside guys.
Wednesday night,
And that's
we've
what
got
happened.
Pastor Joel Tudman on.
So he started putting me up, teaching me, and teaching me how to lead.
Yep.
The crazy thing is I started driving him a couple of places, and some of my friends were well, they're not my friends. They were just associates. Were actually laughing at me, saying, man, you went from being consecrated as a bishop in the Lord's church. Bishop takes your title. He never took my title. I didn't care about the title anyway. Takes your title. Now you're just a pastor. You're not even an assistant pastor. You're an associate pastor. You're in a room with 9 other pastors, and you guys are splitting the 1 or 2 times to preach. It's like you've just gone down. And I'm like, you're crazy. So then my circle goes to like nothing.
Okay.
And I'm learning from him. I'm driving him to the grocery store. I'm driving him to...
You're serving.
I'm serving, man.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm enjoying it because this man has accomplished so much. Just I could learn something from his sneeze, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm learning. I'm spending 1 year learning, 2 year learning. I decided to get my doctorate while I'm there. So I get my earned doctorate while I'm there. One of the crazy things while I'm talking about this was I got up and preached one Sunday, and he says, church was going in, you know, there actually was nobody in there online. They were
Yeah.
fire signs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
He
They
calls
looked
me.
happy on the Zoom.
Yeah. He calls me. He says, "Where are you?" I said, "I just walked off the stage, coming to my house." And it didn't sound good. I said, "Yes, sir." I'm driving. I get to the house. He says, "What were you thinking?" I said, "What we talked about." He said, "That's not what we talked about. Why'd you start so far back?" I said, "You told me to start back and work my way up. Let me see your notes." Hand him my phone. "This is the problem. You got good stuff, but the organization is terrible. This should be here, this should be here, and this should be here."
It's a genius.
And I said, "Okay." He said, "Listen to me." So he takes my sermon, throws my phone down. He preaches to me for 45 minutes, my message, and it's like platinum. He kills it. And he said, "Do you understand what I'm saying?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Now I can preach it a completely different way." And I said, "Really?" He comes from another character in the same verse, 30 minutes, does it again. "This is what I want from you." Then he says, "Now the people online thought you did good. There was a lot of chats. There was a lot of people chatting say you did good, but you didn't come here to just be good. You came here to be great."
Hey. It's called coaching.
I said, "Yes, sir."
I think you know about coaching.
And that's what happened. That is what did it for me, the coaching. Correction culture, I welcome it. And he corrected me. I cried, I laughed, to the point to where now, man, listen, I don't play when it comes to what I got to do because I watch the best. And so being with him, that's what it was all about. I knew I was going to be there for 3 to 5 years, and I seized it. There was no amount of money that you could pay me for what I've learned and what I've experienced under his leadership, and that is what got me to where I am today.
So today we're now in 2024,
Yeah.
and this has been the next iteration, but big transition. You've just moved to South Florida. Bring us up to speed on that story, because I think it's whatever parts you can share. I mean,
well,
I think it's really, really inspiring once again, and really, really amazing.
I
We're so
preach
happy
for
that
this
you're here in
guy.
this area.
Man, I preach for this guy, this bishop, this amazing bishop, Henry Fernandez, that is super low key. You know him.
Yep.
You've preached for him. God has
Special
blessed
guy.
his ministry. He is super special. Thousands of people he's helped people all over the world. And I preached for him in 2023, one time, and then I came back every month and preached once a month, 18 times. And then in June,
Did you know? Did that just happen? Was it like just every month you got the call, or it was like, hey, for the next year, can you come once a month?
it just happened up until
6 months in or something?
5 months.
Okay.
5 months in, we started talking about this may be something. And I told him, I said, pray about it. He's like, I will pray about it. You pray about it. And of course, Bishop Jakes was involved in
Yeah.
everything. And Bishop had to clear that it was okay for me to come once a month. The Bishop said, go ahead. So I came once a month. And then after about 5 months, this got serious. And so I kept coming once a month, once a month, once a month. We had talked about what it was going to look like, the whole succession process. And I can't say when I'm going to officially take over.
Sure, yeah.
But that's going to happen. And but he is coaching me to learn the Floridian nature and the Caribbean nature. And he has amassed an enormous ministry that God has blessed him with, that he is handing over to someone that he didn't even know 2 years ago. And we've been walking together tightly. We do ministry together. We lead together. We're working on the future together. And, man, I've just been blessed, man. I mean, we're in Fort Lauderdale. The church is in Sunrise, and we're touching people.
What are some of like the striking differences between like preaching in Dallas versus preaching in South Florida, like that you see on a week-to-week basis?
Well, if we say I don't know about South Florida, but I do know about that church in particular.
Yeah.
That church in particular, he is such a, I don't know how to say this. Okay, so guys,
Yes.
Bishop is a storyteller and historically accurate, theologically accurate. And he's also an artist. If you know how Bishop, he's an artist when it comes to teaching there. So the responsibility when you step on a platform at the Potter's House, you got to be a storyteller, you got to be a biblicist, theologian. You got to be so many things. And then he's the best preacher in the world.
Yeah.
And then his crowd don't want to hear you. They want to hear him.
That's true.
So
They're
coming
so
here,
disappointed.
yes,
Yeah.
they're disappointed. You're going out disappointing people.
You're
I
not
don't care.
starting at a start like it's back, bro. You gotta
Bro,
get up to that starting line.
Listen, when you get up, it's like, oh God.
I can only imagine.
It doesn't matter who you are. I don't care who you are. It's like, oh, it's not him.
This
Jesus
guy.
Christ.
They got-
Yeah. So you got to get past that. But preaching here, he is such a biblicist and so opposite of Bishop.
Yeah.
He's packaged in his preaching as far as he's always going to give you 4 or 5 things to take home, snackables. He's only going to preach 28 to 30 minutes.
Yep.
If you preach 28 to 30 minutes with Bishop Jakes, you're never preaching again. Okay? You must preach a minimum of 55 minutes.
I love this
Up
stuff.
to about, 75 minutes.
Yeah.
They're programmed to listen that long.
Yeah.
Here, 28, 30 minutes. Snackable content to take home.
Are you preaching 28, 30 minutes?
I'm preaching 45.
Yeah.
I was 115. Now I'm down to 45. And it's working for me. They're not walking out. He told me that the culture in South Florida, they're going to brunch at 12 o'clock. So he says, so if you're not good, they will walk out on you at 12 o'clock. They're going to brunch. So fortunately, that hasn't happened to me yet, But
No one's going to brunch while you're preaching.
So that's what he told me. I was terrified because one time he put me up at 11:38.
You're like, I gotta
I'm like,
go.
what do you want me to do? So I just got up and I talked a little bit, and I was getting ready to say, hey, don't leave. They were like, we're not going anywhere. Preach. So that let me know that I had gotten in their hearts. But people are nice. They're very, very nice. It's a melting pot here.
Yeah.
I'm still learning the different cultures. I don't know what's rude for one versus what's okay for the other.
Sure.
But the people are nice. They speak to me. They're making me feel at home. We love it here, man. I just don't like
Tell me what you don't like.
the reptiles.
You're not into the iguanas?
I can't stand them. They bother me, man.
You got any gators in your backyard?
No gators, but I'm gonna tell you something.
Watch out for those rattlesnakes.
For real?
I mean, I don't know. You're out there in Davie, man. I mean,
Why are you telling me that? Nobody told me that,
you never know.
dude.
You're getting close to Alligator Alley out there,
Let
man.
me tell you something, dude.
We're trying to get you into Dade County. Rich, come on, man. I'm just getting here.
Let me tell you guys something. There's so many serpents, so many reptiles here. I question that scripture in the Bible that you're going to trample over serpents, because
There's so many.
it's so many of them. I don't know.
I don't even know where to
I
begin.
don't know where to begin.
I think it kind of like watching you guys. It seems like such good compliments. You guys are very different.
Completely.
Like physically different, but then I think your gift mix is different, and it seems like a really beautiful thing that God's doing. How is the church responding right now, watching this sort of happen?
The church loves it. Honor has been the code. I honor him so much. He honors me, and sometimes I don't. I tell him, hey, don't say that about me. But he honors me. He's showing them this is actually Sunday when I got done preaching. He said, this is the greatest decision I've made.
Wow.
As a pastor. He said, I've got a lot of things wrong, but this is one thing I did not get wrong. So he is really feeding respect and honor and trust and confidence into the body. And at the same time, I'm showing the church that I'm grateful, I'm respectful.
Yep.
My gratitude is on a whole nother level. I'll never do anything to make you feel embarrassed or they feel embarrassed. I'm going to always respect you at the highest. My wife feels the same way. We're attacking this thing with the greatest amount of honor and humility that you can. I've watched too many young guys or younger guys receive a mantle from someone and want the predecessor to disappear. As if I'm like, no, this guy is handing his body of work, 33 years of ministry, thousands of people, millions of dollars, saying, I'm trusting God, I'm trusting you. And I'm saying to him, stay with me, let's do it together. I want to honor you in your choice. I want to honor God. I want to honor your people because they are your people. I know they're God's people, but they're your people. And so for me, it's going to be very important that I continue to be that way. I'm not pushing him off. I want us to do ministry together.
And right now today, you guys going like every other week, preaching wise, or how's that?
We're going every other week, but Sunday he goes, you did such a good job in part 1. Just go ahead and take part 2. and I'm like, yo, but they are expecting you. He said, trust me, I know my people. Just do part 2.
He's such a statesman, man.
Yeah, he is, man.
He's
Yes, he
amazing. What would you say right now as you're stepping into this new season? what are you like? What are you dreaming about? What are you most excited about? What do you think God's stirring you? Like, it's an amazing story. I mean, I'm thank you so much for taking the time to even share it. But these different chapters, it seems in so many ways like we're not God, but it seems like everything has been leading to this. So today, now as you're stepping into, we're a long way away from Oklahoma City or Amarillo, and there's a huge, I believe, opportunity. And I was even kind of talking to you just briefly before you on, like, I think God is, I see God in it. Sometimes when you're away from something at a distance, it's almost easier to be like, yo, this is logical, but this is about to be powerful. And I think we're about to see something happen in Broward County that I don't think we've ever seen happen before. Is what I'm believing for you.
Me too.
What do you feel like the Lord's stirring in your spirit as you're stepping into this?
I believe
mantle?
this is what God was doing from the beginning of time for me, and I'm gonna tell you why. I got married here. I got married here 14 years ago, and when we planted the church in Oklahoma, the third building that we bought, I told my wife, we're not going to be here. And she goes, what do you mean? We gave up everything to build this church. I said, God showed me another building, glass, sitting up, and a bald-headed man with gray goatee. He gets up to preach. I'm walking down into the auditorium. And when he stands up, I actually stand up. That was the vision I had in 2010. And she says, well, I'm going to do everything I can to keep that from happening. That's what she told me. Because when we built that last building, we gave everything we had, all our money. And she's like, how are we going to sacrifice all of this and then walk away? I just don't understand that. I said, you're going to always reap. You just may not always reap where you sow, but you're going to reap it. And so all these years that we were doing church, doing ministry differently than everybody, all those years, it was even things that we were doing then, people are still doing now or just started doing. We were way ahead of the curve when we were doing it. And then to step into the season we're in now, and now I'm looking at this picture of everything that I actually saw that long ago. I believe God prepares a man for the times that he's in. People say all the time, what are you believing him for? What are you seeing? I'm seeing what I'm supposed to see. I'm seeing exactly what God showed me back then that I'm prepared for now. If there was no Dallas, there'd be no Florida.
Yeah.
But if I didn't go to Oklahoma and trust the glimpses of God with Dallas, I would never be at this place.
Come on.
So everything that God did for me in Dallas, me trusting God with this process, because the truth of the matter is, God can say, this is what I want you to do. But if you don't trust God, because it doesn't always look like that, you know that as a planner. It doesn't always look like what he's showing you. You got to go through the building phases of it.
Yep.
So I had to trust God to leave Oklahoma and then turn around and leave Dallas again, okay? Because leaving Dallas almost killed my marriage. When I not Dallas, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
When I left Dallas to go to Oklahoma, I took my wife from everything and put her in an environment where she didn't know anybody, and it was detrimental to us. We almost busted up.
Yeah.
Okay? Trying to figure life out. Well, we figured it out. So doing this again, it's like,
yeah.
So we prayed about it. We make the move, and everything is exactly what God showed me. And I think that what's happened in my life is just a small microcosm of what God's going to do through us in Florida. Families being brought back together, teaching men how to be vulnerable and learn how to heal. Because I think if we get the man right, we get the house right.
Come on.
Teaching young men, particularly young minority men, how to gain access to capital, how to create businesses, how to create wealth. I'm not just saying everybody can't do it. I'm not just saying it's just for black men, but particularly for them, because we've been so far behind.
Yeah.
Trying to show you that you can accumulate wealth, that you can start a legacy, that you can be incredible. You don't have to sell drugs to do it.
Come on.
Okay? And then learning how to bridge your relationships with other people, different types of people. That's one of the wonderful things I love about South Florida. It's such a melting pot.
Yeah.
I was telling some of your staff earlier that unfortunately my brother and my sister, we were raised all black, and then we learned how to build relationships through athletics and working, how to cross the lines of different colors and start calling it family. While I'm watching my youngest daughter, she's got everybody. She goes to school rich, and she says, She's going to a private school. She says, Dad? I said, yeah. I'm the only person that's just American. I don't like it. And I said, what? She says, it's people from the Bahamas, Honduras, Brazil. I'm like, baby. She's like, Daddy, I don't want to just be American. I want to be something else.
I don't like it.
So we're having an amazing conversation to watch her. That's ministry. That's what I want our ministry to be in Fort Lauderdale.
It's beautiful.
Everybody. That's why I appreciate guys like you and guys like my cousin who have learned how to cross those racial boundaries and just preach Jesus and bring everybody together through healing. And that's what I'm looking to see happen.
Well, you're doing that, man. I'm so excited. Hopefully, you always know that you got a friend in us, that we're cheering you on, we're praying for you.
Thank you.
I honestly am just pumped to watch what God's about to do over the next 10 years in particular. It's going to be better than you ever thought or imagined. Trust me. I know this area a little bit, and I think you're exactly what we need in this area at this hour in the season. We call this the Mature Me podcast, and so we kind of always come around to this moment. What is an area maybe, and you can take this wherever you want to go with it, but what's an area right now that you feel like you need to mature in? What's an area that you're like, I feel like I'm even at 44, that I need to, that I'm maybe immature in, or that I'm really focused on trying to grow in?
Selfishness.
Wow.
I'm so task oriented. I'm so mission minded that's interpreted as selfish to my family, and I'm learning that my drive is also my curse, and I've got to learn how to back off of it and give them that time and stop filling my spaces with assignments, because I almost got addicted to success.
Wow.
But if you were paying attention earlier, the addiction was really my identity, because I didn't know who I was. Yeah. And now that I actually know who I am, I'm like a child trying to understand what they mean when they say, give us more time. I felt like I'm doing all this so that you can have an amazing time. I'm working hard so you don't have to grow up the way I grew up. I'm working hard so you don't have to go over there. You can get what you want when you get ready. But I'm coming to learn that they don't really care. They just want me. And I didn't think that I was enough to give them, because I didn't know who I was. That's my answer to that.
That's a beautiful answer. I got my fourth coming in December. What's your best dad advice to me?
You already got it now. This is your fourth one covered. You already know.
Man, I hope, man. 4. What are we,
just
Amish?
Pick no favorites. No favorites.
No favorites.
No favorites. But the truth is, we have favorites, But no favorite. We do have
My wife
favorites.
gets so mad. We do. No. My daughter. Ladies and gentlemen, we are blessed to have in the house, in person, in the studio, Pastor Joel Tudman. If you are in the South Florida area, honestly, especially in Broward County, go check out what they're doing. It's exciting times. I think momentum always comes when something new is beginning to take place. And I think it was E.M. Bounds that says, the church is always looking for a method, but God is always looking for a man.
Wow.
And I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful we get to serve alongside each other in this area. And we're excited to see all that God's going to do in and through you. Thank you for being on the Mature Me podcast. Thank you for joining us today. Do us a favor, like, comment, share some feedback, share this content with somebody. I know it'll make a big difference. Join us next week right here on the Mature Me podcast. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, friend.
Beautiful.